All right, y'all. You know what time it is. This is the final episode, episode 6. This is what you've been waiting on. All right, let's get it. We got a full crew. There are what? 6 people here. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, but 6. There's 6 episodes. So let's get to it. Let's bring the panel on. Rob, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, and I'll use your line. I am blessed and highly favored.
Oh man, I like it. It's not plagiarism if it's good.
Yep.
All right. Hey there, Doug. How you doing?
Hello there.
Hello there.
My best Obi-Wan impression. Happy to be here, Marwan, and thanks for having me.
I like it. I'm glad you're here. Monkey, how you doing?
Hello.
All right, that is the disembodied voice there. All right. Nick, how you doing?
Doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So glad that you came on. It's so great to see someone who's watching and typing in the chat to actually come on to the show with you and Monkey. So that is fantastic. I love it. And last but not least, Matt, how are you doing there?
Hello. Super happy to be here. I am so excited. For the audience, Nick and I are brothers, so we're long Star Wars fans. So I'm really excited he's here. And I cannot wait for this conversation.
All right. Well, you know what? We are going to jump right on into it. Now, you guys did have a homework assignment, right? Do you remember what that assignment was?
It was what we want to see in season 2.
That's right. If there's a season 2, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully there is. So, yeah, let's jump right into it. So what I'll do is there's so many folks. I don't necessarily want to call on people this time, but I do want everyone to answer the question. So I'll put the question out there and just let it be free form. Say what you got to say. This is the final one. So this one will, and there's more people. So this will undoubtedly go a little bit longer, as it should. But let's get into it. So my first question is this: without talking about the episode in itself, were you satisfied with this Obi-Wan show?
Yes. Most definitely. Without saying a word about the episode, I thought it was done masterfully and well.
Okay. Doug?
I was satisfied. I think it hit what it needed to hit. There's room for improvement, but I could watch a lot more of Star Wars shows at this level of quality.
Nick, what you thinking?
Yeah, I think it really captured a lot of the emotion, and I feel like the overall story was great, and I can't wait to see more.
Matt?
Yeah, I've been telling, I don't give it 2 thumbs up, but I'll give it 1 big thumbs up. And it didn't quite hit all the things to be legendary, which we'll get into, but overall, I was left grinning, and I love Ewan McGregor, and I feel like it hit enough to be a success. And I think Deborah Chow, especially on the emotional and thematic level, is really a master and did such good directing. So I one big thumbs up for me.
And Brandon? Monkey?
I enjoyed it. I'm of course not old enough to remember a lot of things that most of you do, but I can't say I'm an avid protector of the prequels like Matt. They had their ups, they had their downs, but I did like Obi-Wan, and so seeing him again was nice.
And I'll kind of echo and piggyback off of Monkey. I watched the movies. I've watched a few of the cartoons, not all the way through. So I got bits and pieces. I don't know the lore the way that you guys do. I haven't read the books or the comics or all the other different vehicles that Star Wars appears in. But I enjoyed it, and I kind of love getting some news story, right? So you're kind of like, I'm ready for something more. So give me something different. And getting some of that filler to build it in was fantastic for me. So I definitely give it 2 thumbs up for sure. So it sounds like everybody would like to have a second season if that happens, correct?
Yes.
Right. Well, we're all bobbleheads, and so absolutely, yes, we're here for it. So, it starts off on Vader kind of walking to the front of the triangle ship. Now, again, I'm more of a novice. So what is the triangle ship called?
Star Destroyer.
Star Destroyer.
So that seems pretty iconic and epic for me. Is that how that was for you, watching him walk to the front of the Star Destroyer and getting that imagery?
Yeah, there's been a lot of callbacks to the different movies. In fact, I know some analysis actually broke down each episode as a different kind of callback to a different movie, right? So this one was clearly a callback to the opening scene of A New Hope, where you have Princess Leia's ship. I think it was the Tantive 5 or 4, maybe.
I think it was the 4, yeah.
Yeah, Tantive 4 actually being chased by Vader's starship, which is it the Annihilator? Is that what it's called?
Yes,
Vader's
because
Star
then,
Destroyer?
yeah, his Star Destroyer was the Annihilator, and then it's the Executioner when he goes to the Super Star Destroyer.
All fantastic names. I love them both. That's crazy. So what did you think about that, Nick? Watching the iconography of that. Also, I wanted to ask, because we didn't get to ask you this question. Do you feel like they went too much to the well as far as kind of redoing, I mean, almost some of the same lines, same images? Did they go to the well too much? Was that more nostalgic for you? What was your thought on that?
Yeah, one of my favorite parts of that scene was the way they incorporated the music, where it was a callback directly to episode, well, maybe a couple episodes, but most notably, I think it's when the snow speeders are attacking the AT-ATs on Hoth, where it kind of has, where it really felt like that chase scene, the battle has begun, and I felt like at least a lot of the music resonated, and I felt this throughout the series, that there was like callbacks, but I didn't feel like it was a one-to-one, where I was like, oh, I've heard this song before, because the song started but then wouldn't finish, and I've heard some other people support that as well, and I felt like it matches where we are in the story, right? We're between both prequels, where a lot of the themes that are coming up in the original trilogy are bridging the gap between the first trilogy and the prequels and the original.
Yeah.
Monkey, being the youngest viewer, I don't even know if you watched them in order. Did your dad expose you to the prequels first and then 4, 5,
No,
and 6, or how did that go?
I was actually exposed at a young age to the box set of 4, 5, and 6.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then the original 2 animated Clone Wars. And then the prequels and stuff.
And he likes to tell you the first movie that he sat down in a movie theater for was Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow.
How old was Monkey then? Do you remember Monkey?
I do. He was 5.
He was 5?
Yes.
Good father-son times, right?
Good times. I took the day off work for that and took him with me.
Nice.
So,
That's what I call responsible parenting.
that's right.
So, you have Vader. He goes to the front of the ship. Clearly they're in pursuit, and the Grand Inquisitor is like, "Hey, look, this is clearly a trap, or not a trap, but a decoy, right? We need to go ahead and chase these rebels down." Vader's not having it. He definitely wants his revenge on Obi-Wan. What were your thoughts on that, Matt?
Yeah. Let me go there, and then I actually have a question for the group on this, because
Sure.
I want to go down a wormhole, a really in-depth wormhole, and I really want people's opinions. So, but first, I think Doug and I, or I think Nick and I talked a little bit before of like when Vader, it makes sense that Vader's going to go after Obi-Wan, right? And I like when he does the misdirect and he's going to make the sacrifice, that all fits thematically. But Star Destroyers have a whole fleet of infantry and fighter aircraft on them. So it very easily could have sent, they had enough forces there to go both directions. So it was a kind of an odd choice for Vader, especially when Vader knows he's going to go face Obi-Wan alone. So that was my only kind of quibble, of why they couldn't. And I felt like the chase scene could have, and maybe they just ran out of time and budget, but you could have had the TIE fighters chase the cruiser and then jump. That's a classic Star Wars trope, right? To jump right when the TIE fighters are about to get you. So I would have loved to just see a little bit of there. And that's kind of, for me, is emblematic of the story. It's like the plot just needed it needed one run through with almost a nerd proof lens, right? You needed just one more story group Disney guy or gal to run through it, right? And just be like, you got to account for this because this is something that everyone's going to catch. But alas, I'm willing to kind of forgive that because it was very noble for Obi-Wan and to go that way. But my question for Rob, Nick, Monkey, and Doug is, The Last Jedi had very controversial shielding mechanics, right? It introduced a whole new way that shields worked, right? Is that the shields were actually 100 yards from the ship. And then if you actually got close enough, you could actually, destroy certain pieces of the ship with even just a fighter aircraft, right? Kylo Ren gets there and wrecks shop just with his fighter. That also somewhat explains why you have fighters in the prequel area and others, right, that kind of get in close. However, it doesn't appear that, Lucas or anyone else had this method of shields in mind. But I thought for a second, I rewatched it and I couldn't tell. It's kind of ambiguous, but I thought they were implying that that's how shielding was working now. And I'm curious if you caught that as well. As it looked like the blasts were hitting it not right at the hole, but a little bit off. And it looked like the blast from the Star Destroyer. So I'm really curious, one, if you think that was the case. Are they retconning? And do you like that that's how shields work in Star Wars now?
Well, this is an interesting trip down the wormhole with you, Matt. And I guess I didn't think this much about shields. But I love that. I love hearing what you catch though, because it's interesting. My take is maybe it's a different type of shield. Like there's different shield generators, and some are more tight to the hold. Others is a bit more of a buffer. But yeah, that's a good question.
Is there something to be said here about even the Death Star, where the fighters do the run on the Death Star, and they can still shoot the proton torpedo down the exhaust pipe, and they certainly didn't take down the shields of the Death Star. I'm trying to think of other examples where this may or may not apply, but it looked from the footage that it was hitting the shields of some distance away from the spaceship.
Yeah,
I would agree that agree. I guess agree's too strong a term. I think honestly, I think it's a retcon on the shields because it did look like they were off from a distance. But even, you did see some in the prequels or at other times that, fighter ships would come in on them to do any kind of damage. And on the Death Star, Nick's right. They made runs on the Death Star that once they could get inside where the guns were and the turrets, they were wrecking things. So it is neat to see what you catch, Matt, because that is more thought than I actually would have put into it until you posed the question. And a couple of the other things. The scene you're referring to, Marwan, I would say that the Grand Inquisitor was still standing there is only because he's alive in Rebels. Okay? At any other time, if that is anybody else that spoke to Vader that way, be gone with you. You're done. So I think that he could speak to him like that because you know he can't die.
Mm.
So I found that a little awkward, or not awkward, but you know. And
He's
the
canon
other,
protected.
yeah. And the last thing I want to say on a personal note, this is the one rare occasion in all of the different geek media that we play, watch, or see that I actually get to be the subject expert and not the guy that's here with me.
I like it. I like it. Monkey, why don't you go ahead and answer Matt's question there?
You're as stated previously, you're kind of stepping out of my wheelhouse.
Well, what I'll say then is, I didn't notice that, but my thought on a shield, right? If a shield was against the ship, how much would the ship actually be protected? I like the mechanics of the shields being away from the ship, and as that impact hits and it dissipates, it would still rock the ship, but it's not getting that structural damage where it can't operate. So I actually like that.
Yeah, that it does make some. I think it makes sense and causes. I've spent a lot of time thinking about how shielding works in Star Wars. Probably too much time. This is the stuff that keeps me up at night. So I do agree that it does. That's a good point, Marwan. I haven't thought about that. And I do like that it's like that's why you send fighters in there, right? Because they can kind of maneuver, and hit stuff. But it doesn't appear though, like in Rogue One either, right? Like shields don't necessarily like work that way. And then, but stuff can pass through shields, but not laser. So right, it's kind of an interesting dynamic, which I think is established that like things can pass through shields, But then when in episode 3, when Anakin and Obi-Wan are about to board, the General Grievous' ship, they said Obi-Wan has a famous line like, "Do you see the shields are still up?" And then Anakin shoots. So then but I guess Doug's right. There's different types of shields. We can leave the shields behind for now. I just want it to be known that this is something I do struggle with. Shield.
Here comes the really funny part about this. Literally, while I'm watching this episode, one of our other guys, Ernest, was here. And Ernest and me were literally talking about shields and the fact that there are projectile shields and there are energy shields. So depending on, what you're shooting at them. So, if you're shooting photon torpedoes at them, that's a projectile weapon. So the energy shields wouldn't hold up to that, And so it's just weird that we're on this whole shield rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely a rabbit hole. Let's see if we can climb back out a little bit.
Take us out of here, Marwan. I got us way off track.
Man,
get us back to the path.
We're deep right now. So, all right. So, it's now time for Obi-Wan to separate, right? And Leia obviously doesn't want him to leave. One of the touching moments there for me was getting Talia's holster to Leia. So was that emotional for you guys? Because she was like one of my favorite characters in the show. What were your thoughts on that, Nick? Which kind of set up what she looks like later, right?
Right. Like I love that she is now being portrayed in Leia's look moving forward, exactly like you said. And I think that it's a great way to introduce Leia into the world of blasters, because she's obviously not unfamiliar when it comes, as when we meet her in episode 4. And I think probably my favorite part of that holster is that, maybe a sneak peek to the end, but when her droid sits inside of her holster at the very end is probably one of the best touches of the whole show for me.
Doug?
Yeah. Still thinking about the shields, actually.
Oh no.
I'm just kidding. No. I really thought that was neat because what a great role model, or like Talia was like, she's like a premonition of what Leia will become, this strong, heroic female character, selfless, brave. So I thought that was a really nice touch.
Monkey?
I like T'Challa's. I like T'Challa as a character. I think I have to agree with you, Marwan. She's probably one of the best characters in the show because the show definitely had its ups and downs. And it was nice to see a new face.
Yeah, but she died. Like they literally killed her off.
Yeah,
like,
but I think she went out. I think she went out well.
oh, she did. She did die well, right? Today's
Yeah.
a good day to die. Let's go on into Star Trek. Oh man, we got Christina Rourke in the house. Let's go ahead and give her a horn. She's like, you guys, I've seen Dune, but have not seen this movie. Well, check it out. Well, this is a TV show, not a movie. So we are offended. And you need to start watching it right now. So, it's on Disney Plus. It's Obi-Wan. It's only 6 episodes. So if you haven't seen any Star Wars, this is the place to be, Christina. But we're so glad that you're here to watch us geek out a little bit.
Yeah, there's probably 6 other movies you might want to watch, Christina, to really get some of the backstory.
Yeah, only 6. Don't worry about the prequels.
No, the sequels.
What?
Don't worry about the sequels. The prequels are integral.
So I guess there's 9.
All right, go for all 9. But for Obi's story, I think you can maybe focus on the 6.
You know what? Let me ask you a question. If you could have, would you have preferred to watch them the way that they were released, or to be so young that you were able to actually watch them in order, 1 through 9?
This is a good question. I actually thought about this because, I've heard some people compare the Clone Wars, the animated series, which we refer to so much, as that being the introduction point for a lot of kids, because the prequels, how they wrapped up, must have been like 2006, right? 2005.
2005.
So, yeah, so there was kind of a 10-year gap from until I think 2015, which is the Force Awakens. And so for a lot of, there's a lot that's a whole generation, of kids that are kind of growing up without a Star Wars movie. And I think the Clone Wars really filled that period. And I think that's a lovely piece of Star Wars, to some of the best to grow up on. But I am curious that perspective. I don't know as many folks that kind of start with the Clone Wars or then proceed on through. Most of our, my network always started with the original. Part of me, just because I love it so much, I kind of, the non-chronological timeline has become such a thing that Lucas is known for. They're kind of getting away from it now. I really hope Dave Filoni goes back to it at some point, because it's so confusing, it baffles everyone, but it's just kind of part of Star Wars, right? Is you got to untangle where things are. Even the Clone Wars for the first 5 seasons is notorious for this. There's stuff, characters just die and then are back in a few, because the episodes are all over the place chronologically. There's whole guides online of how to watch it chronologically. So I don't know. I'm okay with it, but I am curious how people experience it all the way through. If that's a different, I'm sure it is. I just don't know anybody.
Doug, your thoughts. You've got all your Star Wars collection behind you. If you could go back and rewind time, would you want to have consumed it in its actual order?
No, I think I would have started with 4. And just because I wish I could go in with no knowledge about Star Wars and watch it maybe at the age of 12. And then I could really see it fresh for the first time, and the shock of Darth Vader being Luke's father. When I was a kid, I already knew the pop culture references before really understanding the plot. So in a way, it was kind of spoiled for me already. They're so famous. But if I had 2 children, I would do one that would watch 1 through 9, and the other one would do The Chosen Path. Let's see what the reactions are.
I was going to say, I mean, for the question you're asking, I would never change the way that I saw them. And Doug, to see it with that fresh perspective, I can remember sitting in a movie theater in 1980, and you were like, he just said, what?
Wow.
What? And then you came out and it's like, well, I can't tell my friends about it because he just said, what? You know, and then you had to wait 3 years for Return of the Jedi, and you're going, but I can't, you know, because you had to
That's
wait for
awesome.
it. So, I mean, the excitement, the thrill of watching it all originally like that, you know, and then to come to the prequels, I mean, I can remember the day that we heard the prequels were coming after waiting for so long, you know, and then it's like the prequels were coming. Man, that opening weekend, I went and saw that movie 3 times. Okay? Because I was waiting for Star Wars that long because, you know, I mean, my dad took me to see it like I took Monkey to see Revenge of the Sith. I was 6 years old when my dad took me to see A New Hope.
Mhm.
So, you know, yeah.
We appreciate your 85th birthday.
Exactly. I'm trying.
Rob,
Nick-
it's sorry, Marwan.
oh no, go ahead, Matt.
I say, Rob, it's awesome to get that original perspective. I know my dad's talked about that a little bit, but it's odd because you know Doug and Nick and I are kind of in the we grew up with the original, right? So we kind of just were watched. That was the prequels were the first time that we actually had the movie go. So we're kind of the second, third generation Star Wars fans, whereas you're right in the original. I can I derail us one more time, Marwan, or no? Should I lock it up?
What? We're gonna call you Rabbit Hole Matt. Go ahead.
Well, so we were always I look back now and I'm wondering. I've heard some Star Wars fans thought the Ewoks were like the Gungans for us, right? So like because we were always young enough that the Ewoks were like our teddy bears, and like we always loved I always loved the Ewoks. It wasn't until like someone burst the bubble that are like, wait, why are little bears taking on stormtrooper? But right, that the awkward
They're
like that was
tactical
always.
geniuses, though.
What's that?
They're tactical geniuses.
They're tactical geniuses. But when you, as an adult, walked in and the Ewoks for the first time, were you like, "What is going on?" Or was it cool when you first saw it?
When I first saw it, it was, "What is going on?" Okay, I mean, because I was 13 when Return of the Jedi came out.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, it's a running joke around the house because I have no love for Ewoks. I have no love for the Gungans, right? But I'll do something, and all you hear from Monkey is jub jub ah, okay, because he knows that I have no love for the Ewoks. And I actually have somebody else that wants to weigh in on perspective of watching it, so I'm going to let Ernest speak.
What's up, Ernest?
Hello, everyone. I just wanted to say I'm actually in the group that watched the originals first, so I've seen 4, 5, and 6 before I ever saw any of the rest of them, and that's where I start. And I wouldn't give that up because those to me are the base. They're the solid part that gives you the rest of the story. So, and I'm a super nerd because I have books, I have memorabilia, I have all of that too. I mean, like I have an entire, yeah, I know, right? Right. I have 274 books out of like the 350 books that they have. So I've read every single one of them. So, but yeah.
Didn't know they had that many.
Yeah, well, perspective 4, 5, and 6 were the original for me, and I can't say that I would change that. So,
I appreciate
great
that.
story in the first 3, but yeah, 4, 5, and 6 all the way. All right, I'm out.
Let me ask you a question, Nick. I think Rob laid it out really well, where he talked about discovering Vader, needing to wait 3 years, and how impactful that was. If you could think about how 1, 2, and 3 kind of rolled out, and then seeing 4, 5, and then 6, and getting that reveal, do you think that could have been even more impactful to have to wait 6 movies over that span? I mean, can you even put yourself in that headspace of not discovering that until? I mean, when did 1, 2, and 3 come out versus 4, 5, and 6? Like 20 years? Would that be even more mind blowing, or can you put yourself in that space?
Yeah, so I'm actually 6 years younger than Matt, and so I'm in the category where the Gungans for me when it first came out were actually cool and funny, because I was young enough to fit the demographic that nailed perfectly. Even though I had seen both, I still liked them, and now looking back, I have a different sort of fond memory of like liking it as a kid, but also recognizing that now as an adult that just doesn't hit the same way. But I will say that if this were to be the story from start to finish, if everyone were to watch from starting with one, I think they'd have to change some of the last scenes of episode 3, where they kind of divvy out Luke and Leia to Tatooine and Alderaan, because I think part of that would kind of spoil the surprise, at least of episode 5. But I think it would be really interesting, right, to have that perspective from watching Anakin become Vader, and then to see that moment in episode 5. I can't even imagine. I mean, kind of what you were saying, Rob, right? Like it was just such a huge surprise that kind of seeing him in that moment might be even more impactful, maybe. Although part of I think what's nice about the prequels is that now that you have a vested interest in Vader, in his kind of turn to the light side, it's now really interesting to see the opposite. How did he go from a boy into the dark side? So I could see why that's I don't know. I could see it going either way, and people enjoying it either way.
All right, I like it. Did you want someone else to answer your rabbit hole question there, Matt?
No, we're good. I'll stop derailing it.
No, it's
let's
all
go
good. So we got to throw some matrix in there. So I need to put a white rabbit up there. So follow the white rabbit for all you Matrix fans there. All right, so Leia's really disappointed. They've got to separate. I think he had already made a promise that he wasn't going to leave her, right? And now it's like I have to leave you. I need to do this. The one character, I can't think of his name right now. Ice Cube's son. Is he in the
Roken.
Yeah, Roken? Is he in the Rebels? No, so he's a new character also. Do you think we'll see him maybe in Andor, possibly? Okay.
Yeah.
What did you think of his character shortly? I don't think there's really enough to build on him, but did he leave any kind of impression?
I liked when Obi-Wan was trying to give him like words of encouragement, like people are listening to you and you're such a strong leader. And he was like, oh, we're just getting started. Like he's ready to, like he's got a fire in him, and I bet for sure he'll be popping up in Andor and others. Yeah.
And I can appreciate that too. Some of that connective tissue to bring that into the next show and say, okay, there he is, and we can watch some of his character development. So yeah, I actually do like that idea there. So Vader takes off. Now, what was the name of his individual ship? You guys talked about it earlier. Rob, do you know the name of that ship?
His individual ship is just a Lambada class shuttle. So that's what he took down to the surface. And I would call back to when you guys were talking about Leia, I did not make a statement about that. The best line in that scene was, "I'm not giving you a blaster. You're only 10."
There was a lot of touching moments with I did think Vivian Lila Blair, I think that's how you say it. But anyways, that's the actress that played Leia. I thought she did a really fantastic job. She really encaps, as much as it was a little frustrating to watch her continuously disobey Obi-Wan in the early episodes, I felt like she really came into her own as Leia and did such a good job, like really encapsulated the kind of strong, emblematic feminist icon, that really Leia is, of, being a very kind of forward, intense, passionate, she's not going to wait. But also very loving and tenderhearted, right? She really, it was touching to see Obi-Wan say goodbye to her, right? That was a touchy moment. And then, yeah, to give to have the holster kind of be given. And you're right. The blaster line was there were some really good lines, I think, throughout this whole series. The one we didn't give any love to last week was Vader. It was very early on, but Reva says it's an honor to be here, and Vader says, "I have no interest in pleasantries or formalities." It was just such a perfect Vader. It was just a 2-second line, but I was just like, that's just so Vader, right? Or civilities. I have no interest in civilities, right? Like, I was just like, that's Vader. But yeah, I actually really love Leia in this episode. The whole connection with her and Obi-Wan adds such a new and rich dynamic to her going to help in A New Hope. And like, she would risk the rebellion to go there because she has all these fond memories now, right, of Obi-Wan being the protector. And like, yeah, that's who you go to, right, when all hope is lost, right? You go to Obi-Wan on Tatooine.
I can give you that. I just wish they would make the child characters just a little less obnoxious, in episodes 1 through 3, because she did grow on me, through episodes 4 through 6. So I agree with you there. But she was over the top in 1 through 3. But so was Reva. Like, Reva grew on me also. Like, her dialogue was really, really bad in 3. She just seemed really one note in episodes 1 and 2. But as they kind of developed her story, it got a little bit better. However, I think it kind of fell apart, a little bit here in episode 6. So there's a little bit of divergence, right? So they have the confrontation between Obi-Wan and Anakin Vader, and then also with Reva going against Beru and Owen. First off, was she in a back to tank? How did she? I can see she's still limping around, but I'm just not getting. Explain, somebody, just jump in.
Nick and I were talking about this because we watched it together and right after it. I think we came to the conclusion that you really don't have to worry about any lightsaber wound unless you're beheaded. That seems to be the one that gets you. But unless you're beheaded, the wound cauterizes, you're okay. Like, you lose an arm, you lose a leg, like, yeah, you might be in some trouble. You get run through, no problem. I don't know. I mean, this is the part I thought this was a little clunky, but I think this is kind of just, there's always going to be a silliness to Star Wars. You just kind of accept it. And yeah, I mean, it's the same mechanic of, like, if anyone would have just killed someone and not left them for dead throughout this arc, we would have been done 3 episodes, right? Like, the fact that people just like keep leaving people to like and not finish them off is really a driving point behind Obi-Wan. And so you kind of just got to go with it and like, all right.
Well, Obi-Wan killed Anakin in episode 3.
I know.
Yeah.
Have the series at all or the other movies. Well,
and thank you for the explanation, Matt, because that's where my head went to explain it away so that I would just accept the fact she was ran through. It had to be a
the kid show, Rob. Okay.
As Monkey said, so I could sleep well at night. So,
I mean, if I'm taking my best guess, it didn't hit any vital organs, and the lightsaber instantly cauterizes it, so she's not going to bleed out. So you're just kind of wounded, right? Like, it'd be a really bad day. At least they have like, some implication that she's limping, right? So they at least have some kind of reverberation from that.
We're going to go to Nick now. You are watching an apologist in action, right? So a saber through a metal door leaves a heat, imprint this large. Her liver, her spleen, her kidneys, her lung, her heart is all fused together, but she's all right. Nick, help me out here.
You're not going to like this, but I think the important thing to think about here is the meaning about what's going on, right? Like, for Vader, Reva is not even worth taking the swing to kill, right? Like, she is less, it's not even worth his time to kill her. right? Because she is less than nothing to him. He has been playing her from start to finish, right? And when we think about Obi-Wan and Vader later on, right, it's the opposite, right? It's like, it's this mercy that is the, like you actually like, I mean, there's kind of a little bit of like this Anakin and Vader thing, and maybe I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but like I think if we start thinking about each of these instances, like I think if we look thematically, there's actually reasons and deeper, points to talk about here. But I fully agree that she should have died.
Okay, Monkey. So the younger brother is defending the older brother. Can you please help us here?
I gotta agree with Matt.
Oh no!
It didn't hit any vital organs. It instantly cauterizes. You'd have been better off putting a 44 to her head.
Wow, that's dark.
Lightsabers can't deflect those. So.
All right, fine. I what can I say?
I would end it with this. Maybe she's got the cyborg center like in Book of Boba Fett.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. I will suspend all belief and just go for it. So she lands back on the planet. You guys can yell the planet out because I don't remember the name.
Tatooine.
Thank you. And she is searching because she listened to the message, right? And so at this point is, she wants to kill Luke. And so I guess she wants to do the exact same thing that Anakin did to the Jedi children, right? And that's pretty hardcore. Like, hey, you know what? I can't kill you. I'm going to murder your son. What were your thoughts on that? Do you wish they could have done something else in that scene? Or were you okay with that?
Can I just add
a
question to your question?
Sure.
And this is part I just don't fully understand is what does she actually know? Like, it's clear from the video that like some of the transmission goes through, but not all of it. And yeah, I'm just not exactly sure. I think we hear Tatooine and children and maybe Owen, and she pieces together from episode 1 when she met Owen that something about children. But how does that relate to Vader, and how does that relate to Obi-Wan? Does anybody have any insight in that?
This is a squishy one. I thought a little about this in the rewatch today too. It's not fully clear what she pieces together. Like, I don't know if she fully knows that Vader is Luke's father. I think all my kind of like trying to put the pieces together is that she knows that Obi-Wan, right, is Vader's old master, and that Obi-Wan now is protecting this child, and that there's I think she's thinking it's somehow connected. Maybe she could guess child, but that wouldn't make logical sense because she didn't know Padme was around. So somehow this child is important, and that's what my thought was, that she's just now the last way she can get revenge is to take this child's life that's somehow connected to Vader. But it's an interesting choice, and this is kind of what I like. Thematically, I think it's really powerful, and this is, I think, the criticism of the series. But sometimes the mechanics are a little tough to follow. But that I'm curious, Doug and Rob and Monkey, how you guys took that, because it's an interesting point to put her back on, Tatooine, and then now, it's pretty interesting that she knows this very secretive child, Luke, and now she's just running amok in the galaxy, right? That's that could kind of have some canon breaking potential there. But yeah, I'm curious.
I would say that the little bit she pieces together there, that she figures she's going to hurt someone that at least Obi-Wan cares about, at a minimum, and maybe she gets a shot at Anakin the same way. But she doesn't know if there's a tie to Anakin or not. But it's definitely a shot at Obi-Wan.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, and I thematically, I think that the mechanics are clunky, but the theme is a powerful one, because now she is literally, I have fallen to the level of, this is what happened to me, and I am going to be this monster. Mm-hmm. So, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah.
Doug, what are your thoughts there? And they also conveniently left her ship.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. Uh, I understand they wanted to tie things back up with going back to Tatooine and Owen and Luke. I just didn't find, and like Reva gets she finally, we get to see her change at the end, but I was just way more interested in Obi-Wan and Vader's final conflict, and I was kind of bummed whenever it would go back to
Mhm.
Reva on Tatooine, because I already know who's, like, Luke's not going to die, Owen's not going to die, Beru's not going to die. They put up a great fight. Those two should be like commandos or like for the rebels. They're amazing. But yeah,
They took cover.
They took cover. I know.
they took
And
cover.
they did take cover.
And they don't
That's all
need
you have
to.
to
She's
do.
fighting with a lightsaber.
Okay, so I would ask though, in New Hope, they apparently didn't find their way to cover because
Ooh.
the stormtroopers found them.
They,
So,
And they like barbecue.
yeah, exactly. I enjoyed the scenes with them when when they pull the guns out and he's like, "Where's Obi-Wan?" Now, and she's like, "Well, whose fault is that?"
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's your fault he's gone, basically, because you're not very nice.
mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good touch. I did like that too, because both Obi-Wan and Owen kind of softened their stances, right, of what they should, and that was a nice arc for them. But yeah, it was. I mean, I did like Owen and Beru in action. Like, that was kind of cool to see the farmers, right? Like, get their, well, they had some nice blasters, not even pitchforks, but they're packing. But it was, yeah, against Reva and the Inquisitor was, someone so powerful, right? Yeah, I agree. It was just kind of but Doug, to your point, this felt like a distraction from the awe and just inspiration and intensity of the Anakin and Obi-Wan fight. So it was, yeah. And that's where I think there was a little bit of a letdown, is like, you're just every time you're like, cut back, right? Cause there's really no stakes, right? It's, we kind of know, but I want to give Doug credit. On episode 1, Doug called Reva turning to the light side. On episode 1, back when she was just cutting off hands willy-nilly, right? Like,
and surviving, right? Because
yeah,
she could have died so many different times throughout. I mean, Obi-Wan could have killed her. Any of the other Inquisitors could have killed her. Vader could have killed her. Apparently, even Beru and Owen could have killed her. So she could have died at any time. Monkey, tell us this. Answer the question on how you felt about Beru and Owen against Reva, and then take us into the next part, because I think it was Doug that brought up the fact that going back and forth, you just want to see the main epic fight. But I think they had to kind of cut back and forth because Obi-Wan had to get there at the end of their conflict, right? So it would seem weird. You couldn't have that. I guess you could have had it beforehand where he resolves that and then he fights Vader, but that wouldn't make sense because he's in pursuit and that would take Vader to Tatooine. So you couldn't have done that. You couldn't have had the fight after, because now you just had Vader and Obi-Wan. So everyone's like, what are you doing? I don't want to see this. The show's over. So it seemed like the only way they could do it was weave it in between. What are your thoughts on that, Monkey?
Well, I think Owen and Beru being able to fight Reva at least the little bit they did was a little odd, especially seeing them in episode 4. But it was not unwelcome, especially the line from Reva speaking to Owen, saying, "You fight for him like he's your son, because he is."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a good touch.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Agreed.
Good point. I really like that line.
Yeah.
And now we know why Owen has a limp.
Yeah. That
Oh.
that line did, I think that line does give some kind of insight into what Riva knows, because she at least knows that Luke is not Owen and Baruz.
Yeah.
Good point.
Because of course, as you said, we caught bits and bobs of the transmission, but we don't actually know what Riva caught, having her adeptness with the Force and reading people and stuff that we've seen throughout the show. But leading, I do think one of the things that I kind of had to figure out when watching it again was, if you go back to New Hope, when Ben gives Luke the lightsaber, Luke's never seen one. Yet here Riva is, when Luke is a child, with her lightsaber completely out. I mean, coming after him. And the thing I'd say about that is he was too far up the ladder for that. He couldn't actually see it. He probably saw the red light, but you're young, you miss things. Yeah, you're traumatized.
So in the end, when they were in the desert, and didn't she have the saber out and was ready to strike him, or was it still?
He was unconscious. He had just fallen.
Okay, gotcha.
That's right. Okay.
And that's when she sees him as a younger her and all of that. So,
man, that's good detail there, Monkey. I like it.
Good
That's
stuff.
what's so great about getting different perspectives, right? Everyone sees something different. So let's continue to unpack that, because we want to save the best for last. So, her journey to the light, Doug. You know, you called it at the very beginning. Was that a satisfying payoff? What happens to Riva? Do we see her like we see some of the others that were in the series in Andor? Like,
yeah, I think she's gonna pop back up again. I don't see why not. And honestly, I would welcome it. I think a reformed Riva would be really interesting. I actually liked her. She did have some clunky lines for sure, but I like the actress, and I'd really like to see what she could do with like someone who's trying to like maybe seek forgiveness in the galaxy and maybe help, you know, the people she was persecuting, you know, and rounding up. Like, I think that would be a really cool arc to see on her end. It was satisfying, but again, I just think I wish it wasn't done. I just feel like it was distracting from the main event, the main course. And yeah.
That could have been 30 minutes of Obi-Wan against Vader, right?
For sure. And then maybe at very least Tatooine could be a little epilogue at the end, you know. But yeah.
So tell me, Nick, what were your thoughts on Riva's arc, her going to the light? Was that a satisfying payoff for you? What do we see her again in the future? Do you want to see her in the future?
Yeah, I really enjoyed her final lines about. I actually had to rewatch with the subtitles because I couldn't exactly understand what she meant, but she was talking about how she failed them, and I was trying to figure out who is them, and them I think are her friends who she references to in previous episode, who she couldn't protect against Anakin and against the clones, and she, you know, she thought she failed because, you know, she couldn't get a dig back on, you know, Anakin. And I think that supports what Monkey was saying, where, you know, he or she knew very well who Luke was, or at least Luke had some sort of connection to Anakin, because that's how she could revenge her her friends. But instead she shows mercy because she can't, all she sees is herself. And that's, you know, Obi-Wan's message, right? It's like, you showed mercy, and that is much better than showing revenge, right? And so I actually really enjoyed it. I'm in agreement that, I think she was a little rough around the edges to start, for a few reasons, but I think she did grow on me as the season progressed, and I am very interested to see what her next steps are, and how, as someone who was an inquisitor, and what do you do now? What do you do as you've come to, acceptance and a little bit of like, the next step after the next in your kind of healing journey, against kind of your past trauma. And I'm very curious, and likewise I am with Obi-Wan, and I think it would, I wouldn't mind to see them together sometime soon.
All right. Oh, together. All right. Not like shipping them together, but just together on
just
screen.
partners.
Okay.
Partners. Yeah.
Reva and Obi-Wan in a cave.
It's lonely out in the desert.
So Rob, tell me
Qui-Gon
this.
watching.
Qui-Gon watching? Wow. I'm sure there's a category for that on some other websites, but we won't go there. Rob, are Jedi like Super Saiyans? Reva, fought Vader and survived. She sucker punched, the Grand Inquisitor and, stabbed him. Is she stronger now? Or is she at the same level of the Force?
I I guess that's going to remain to be seen. I think that, her making the turn, though I do enjoy the fact she made the turn, and they had to do it in the time frame they did because we only had 6 episodes. If there could have been a second season, or the season was even longer, I would have preferred her to stretch that out before that happened. Because it seems like it went so fast. But that being said, I props to Doug for calling it right off the bat. And her character grew on me over time, and I think that it'll be good to see more with her, be it with Obi-Wan or not with Obi-Wan. And I think that was the only thing that disappointed me about her at the end of this was we saw that she turned to the light, and that's the last we saw of her. So did she walk off into the desert? Did she get on a ship and go somewhere? Did we get that? Was the closure right there? Was she made the turn and then there was nothing else?
Right.
And I really couldn't tell you. I don't know that she'll be stronger as a Jedi or not. I think that comes with the connection and a belief in the Force. So
let me ask you this, Matt. Did she throw away her lightsaber? Does she get a new saber? Can she use a red saber while she's part of the light? Like, how does that work?
I think the implication was she kind of threw it, and that's the symbolic, like you're leaving that path behind. Typically, if a Jedi or someone kind of leaves a certain kind of side, they typically get a new lightsaber, right? That tends to be the path. And I think her arc could go a number of different ways, but I think which Obi-Wan's now collecting quite a lightsaber collection on Tatooine, so we'll don't know if that'll have any resonance, but her from the Clone Wars, her path now mirrors Asajj Ventress. So if you remember, Asajj Ventress was Count Dooku or Darth Tyranus's kind of Padawan, and then she eventually followed a similar path with Reva, was dumped by betrayed by Count Dooku, and then tried to get revenge with Savage Opress. It was a very complicated, really good Clone Wars arc. And then it actually ties in a little bit here because I think in the book Dark Disciple, Asajj Ventress and Quinlan Vos like team up for a bit, and I think they might have some. I only read some of that, so I don't fully know. I don't know if Rob, if you know, but I think they may have had some romantic connection, but don't quote me on that. But essentially, but she kind of went to kind of the bounty hunting path and actually ended up not just becoming a light side user. So she kind of stayed in this kind of middle ground and didn't really just become a Jedi. And so that's why Reva, I think it's pretty open of what once you kind of give up the the duality of Sith and Jedi, and maybe she would. I don't doubt they would go that full route because there's just not that many Jedi to train her, right? It's not, I really doubt they would have Obi-Wan take a Padawan on Tatooine. So I think she would kind of be in this gray. I think it would be interesting to see her maybe help the rebellion, right? Kind of like Ahsoka does as a gray Jedi or kind of middle of the road, right? It'd be interesting for Ahsoka and her to cross paths. That would be a really fascinating kind of arc, because Ahsoka is also active in this time period. So it'll be really interesting. She didn't show up in Rebels, so right, that's when Ahsoka, kind of leaves the rebellion and in Twilight of the Apprentice, which we've referenced. So it'd be interesting that she doesn't appear there. Maybe something happens, but I think there's a lot of different directions that they could go with Reva at this point. But yeah, I just want to agree with what Nikki said too. I thought it was really thematically, it was really powerful, even though it was kind of a bit sudden to get her there. But thematically, to see her choose the path of kind of mercy at the end, right? I mean, they're all, you can kind of look at on a broad, you had Vader, Reva, and Obi-Wan all dealing with the trauma of Order 66 in different ways, right? Or the trauma of the Clone Wars, right? And Obi, we start is hiding, right? He's in action. Reva has a specific revenge, and Vader's just burn everything down, right? So you have like kind of different ways of dealing with that. And it was great to see Reva, the revenge plot fail. Remember, that's the context, right? It's like I don't think she'd be at the point unless she got a humiliating defeat, right, from Vader, right? So which I think I love. That's part of, the hero's journey a lot of times, right, is actually being humbled and being defeated to actually have your actual eyes open to see. And then, Deborah Chow did such a good job with the trauma of right? You actually she sees herself. And so to have her show mercy and then Obi-Wan show mercy was just a fantastic, dynamic of actually, forgiveness. And that arc is all the way through Luke and Vader's. It's a strong Jedi arc. One that you even saw in the training montage, right? Is Obi-Wan chastising Anakin is where, we're not just about taking out our opponents. We're defending life, right? Mm-hmm. Which then feeds into why Obi-Wan leaves Vader at the end. So I thought that note was hit so much, is like, when you don't have to, don't take life. Doug knows one of my favorite quotes from Lord of the Rings is when, Frodo is asking, Gandalf of why did Bilbo not kill Gollum when he had the chance, right? It's like, it's such a pity. Why Bilbo should have just killed him. And then Gandalf chastises him and says, it was mercy that stayed his blade, you fool, right? Like, don't go dealing death out so easily to others. You don't know what part they have left to play. And I feel like that's such a theme that resonates here too of Obi-Wan, is that mercy wins the day out. And that's something I think that it kind of is an echo of the true Jedi path. The sequels go a little different direction, but I think with the prequels, Clone Wars, that is really a resonant kind of stance.
Mm-hmm. All right, so since we're back a little bit in the rabbit hole, let me take us down a little bit into the rabbit hole. So my question is this: she throws her lightsaber away, right? So let's say she decides to help the rebellion. If she gets another saber, she hasn't been trained in the light. So by using the dark side, would that bring her evilness back out? Would that drive her back to the dark side by using the Force? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a good question.
Nick is thinking. Doug is thinking.
Well, that's a good question, Marwan. You actually that's a really. I'm actually curious everyone's answer, because it's how does the Force work with light and dark? I'm really curious what everyone has to say.
A stumper. I love it.
I think she would still have. I think she'd be able to get into the Force. I mean, she's still trained those muscles with her brain, right? So it's there, but I think certain Force abilities that are more associated with the light side may not come as easily, and she might need to be trained on that. But like, could she fight and use the Force? I think so. But if she wanted to be more light side, she would be focused more on defense tactics or redirection versus instead of just conquering and killing. But I'm going to say yes.
All right, Nick, what are your thoughts?
Gosh, yeah, really great question, Marwan. I could see a couple things come to mind, I guess. One of them is a comment from Sidious to Anakin when talking about, trying to save Padme or someone he loves from death, right? And Anakin says, "Is this possible?" And Sidious says, "Not for a Jedi," right? There's some things that are not possible for Jedi as well as Sith, right? At this point in time, there's no mention of Sith Force ghosts, right? There's just Jedi Force ghosts, right? So there's some clear distinction of some abilities are available. I mean, shooting lightning out of your fingers was kind of one of those, and then Rey kind of did that. So, but I think that was actually more of a reference to Darth Sidious anyway. Anyways, it gets a little complicated, and I think it's rightfully so complicated, right? Where in the Clone Wars we see a lot of Anakin blurring the lines of, having good character as well as having certain powers, right? Like, and I think Anakin in a lot of ways tries to use power, right? Like gain more power in order to defeat his enemies, right? And that's more of a character trait, or at least like a moral stance, and versus, I think there'll be a lot that would have to be untrained, right? You have to unlearn what you have learned for Reva to kind of exactly what we're saying, show mercy, not just this one time, but show mercy moving forward, value life. And like, that doesn't mean that she's not disconnected from the Force, but it might be like when, people lose a limb, right? Where you have to like retrain how your body works, or like retrain your mind in order to, accomplish some things. Does that make sense? Does that feel?
Yeah, Rob, Monkey, jump in there. What's your thoughts on that?
I would say that she accessing the Force is one thing. That the gamut of powers on the dark side are based on your anger, your fear, your hatred, and those emotions. So to learn to use the other side of it, she would have to, as Nick was saying, unlearn, that this is my driving force. This is what I do. She would have to learn to have that compassion and the mercy and the valuing life, where on the Sith side it's disposable. And on the rabbit hole that we were talking about, Nick had mentioned you don't see a Sith Force ghost. Well, I would ask, because I literally had seen this thing the other day. So Sidious makes comment that Darth Plagueis had figured out how to conquer death, which we know he was looking for immortality. So is that soul transference? And if it's transference to a new body, like Sidious was wanting to do to Rey by the time he got to 9, did Plagueis transfer himself into Sidious when he killed him?
Wow.
And then at that point, Vader was never the perfect vessel because of being the cyborg and everything else, but Luke would have been, and he was begging Luke to strike him down.
Mm-hmm.
So is that how, where you don't get Force Ghost with the Sith, but their immortality is that?
I really like that, Rob, and I think that shows a good difference between those who are on the light side. They will exist eternally as ghosts, right? It may not be in our physical form, but they don't value the physical form nearly as much as the dark side does, because they understand that there's power that's not steam. Whereas with the Sith, they can only imagine this realm and might, and having a young host and a body with strength that they can take over and consume, you know. Yeah, wow, that's a really cool thought. I really like that, Rob.
Immortality by rule of two. And obviously you're suggesting more than that, like, right, there's something that actually gets passed on. But yeah, I think that's fascinating and worth thinking about more.
All right, I like it. All right, let's come back out of the rabbit hole. And now, son, let me tell you. Son, let me tell you. Son, let me tell you. This might be the greatest Jedi battle that I have seen. Woo! Let me tell you. If you haven't seen it, you need to watch it. Google it. You could just watch it. But the story makes it so much more. But Obi-Wan is back. I mean, he's twirling the blade behind his back. I mean, woo, man. Come on, y'all. I don't even know how to start this piece off, but this is what we've been waiting on. This is what we've been, as soon as they announced Obi-Wan, whenever they did, it was like Obi-Wan against Vader. We're gonna see this rematch. We want to see the fight. We get the fight. We gotta wait all this time, even when the show starts, and then we finally get it. They tease it because we gotta go back and forth with Reva, but we get it, and it's so awesome. Need someone with me. Can I get an amen from the choir?
Amen.
Amen.
Oh, hallelujah. All right. Someone just take us there. You know, what were your thoughts on the battle? I don't even know where, like I said, I don't even know where to start with this.
I knew it was going to be good the moment that Obi-Wan did his infamous, 2 fingers forward and, blade right over his head. I thought, oh, yes, this is going to be it.
And then uttered, "If I must."
Yes.
Yes.
Which is a callback to Revenge of the Sith. You know?
Oh.
It was, and that's Obi-Wan's, kind of form from Clone Wars. So, he'd really got his mojo back, right? He'd reestablished General Kenobi, right? He's really found out. He's dealt with some of his issues, and then this fight, I feel like has so much, there's so much symbolically happening as well. But yeah, it was so good to see. And that's it. I know that right off the bat, because Vader is like, "Are you going to kill me?" Right, taunting him, and then he's not here to kill him, but he'll do what he must, right, in order to kind of save the kids that are on the path, and right, his whole plan. And that right back to his objective is not to kill his enemies, to defend life. That's what Jedis do, right? And so I think right off the bat, there's just so much layers, and to see him from episode 3, where he just got complete, like, just, frail Obi-Wan, and it was so earned to see him line up in his form and then go after it. And and I'm curious too how you thought of, because they weren't flipping around like the prequels, right? It was a much more grounded fight. I actually watched I think IGN had like a sword expert, Matt Easton, on, and he actually said this was a lot more realistic of an actual sword fight relative to some of the other. So it's interesting that that's the way they went. They went with a much more grounded, kind of realistic, and I thought it totally worked. But I'm curious what you all thought of the actual mechanics, because it was really, I thought it was intense. It was brutal, and it was, the swings had weight to them, right? Like you felt like it was swords rattling when they actually connected.
Boy, well, just like how this whole series has been a great blend between the prequels and the original trilogy, this nice stepping stone, I feel like, boy, this fight is just like that as well. You're getting some really cool force abilities that are a little outlandish that you might see in the prequels, but the actual combat was more measured and, like we see in the original trilogy. I thought it was really visually stimulating, but also it served such a great, like, it had so much meaning behind it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just a throwaway lightsaber fight. It's how I feel like lightsaber fights should be when you have these two big characters. Totally worth the wait. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from the minute where he goes into the stance, and you're like, oh yeah, now it's gonna happen, and then Vader's answer to him is, "Then you will die." I mean, flat out, you will die.
Mm-hmm.
And as that fight progresses, and you're watching it, and they get to the point where he grabs hold of it, and of that huge rock, and Vader stops, and it's like, your strength has returned. Yeah, it has, but you're still gonna lose, because your problem is you have mercy.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you will always lose to me, because he's still in his own head thinking, you know what, I'll beat you down.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to have mercy. I will kill you, and this will be done, because all he wants is that
Yeah.
revenge.
Yeah.
So, Monkey, jump in there. Now, what I thought about when we talk about Master and Padawan, what was so smart about Obi-Wan is he knows that, right? He knows that he has mercy. So I've got to get you away. We're going to go to an isolated planet. You're not going to use people against me. It's just you and me, right? So and I think that's a big deal because evil folks do that all the time, right? You're gonna have collateral damage, and you're gonna have to try to save them, and you're gonna be vulnerable. So Obi-Wan's like, nah, we're gonna land over here. It's just you and me, buddy. Monkey, jump in there. What were your thoughts on this fight here?
I really liked it. I wasn't a big fan of the flippy bippy from the prequels. I am far more of a fan of measured strikes and just very grounded combat. So to see Obi-Wan start out with his Clone Wars stance, and it was a rematch of the lifetime. I mean, and to watch Obi-Wan through the first half of this fight put up a decent fight, but still get overpowered at that halfway point was interesting, because it shows that Obi-Wan is back, but he has not learned everything he has needed to about who his friend has become.
Yeah, that's a good point, because I feel like in Roken even asked that, of like, there might be another way outside of you dueling Vader, right? Remember, Roken even says you want to go down there, and I think Obi-Wan, that's part of his arc of dealing with the trauma of Anakin turning and feeling like he let him down. And I think really what Obi-Wan is doing down there, besides rescuing the path, is he's fighting for Anakin, right? I think Obi-Wan thinks that he might still be able to turn Anakin back, and he, at least for himself, needs to try, right? He needs to address that and actually face that and see Anakin as Vader, and then ultimately he ends up accepting that towards the end of the fight. And so, but yeah, I think you're right, Monkey, is that there is an element of he does underestimate, or at least he doesn't have all the skills, because he's there with an ulterior mission, right? To really try to see if Anakin's still in there and it's not just the suit. And then he gets thrown into the pit, which I think is so lovely, not lovely for Obi-Wan, but I think it's such, and this is where Deborah Chow, I think, is just excellent, is because, we found Obi-Wan in a pit in the beginning of the story, right? He was in the cave. He's in this pit of inaction. He can't get out of it, right? He's literally, and Anakin now has literally put him there, where figuratively Anakin had put him there before, and he was so torn up about it. And now it's finally his connection of like, oh, I can actually get back out there. I have agency. There's still work to be done. Has kind of restored his connection to the Force, and it's the Force, right, that actually allowed him to, to hold himself and actually then hop out of the pit, right? He's actually able to get out of there. And I feel like that just perfectly mirrors the story. Like, that's when this fight is so good, because it mirrors, the almost the whole story, right? You can kind of pull the different arcs out. And I think that's when lightsaber battles are at their best, is when they're like Doug said, they're filled with more meaning, And back with the eyes, right? The eyes of Vader. I feel like there was multiple shots where early on the flames in their first battle, and then now you actually saw multiple times the the blue and the red lightsaber, right? Like reflected. And I kind of took that as there is still good in Anakin. We know that, right? Because we know Anakin turns back, but you actually can see that battle, and that's what they're fighting over. And yeah, I feel like there was just so many little nods to what's going on thematically within this fight that I was just electrified by.
So, Rob, I want to get your thoughts. Now, what was interesting in the first arc of this battle before they cut back to Riva, at first, Darth is fighting with one hand. Before they go to the first cutaway, he goes to two hands, right? So Obi-Wan is giving it his all, and Darth is like, okay, I can't fight one-handed now, right? I've got to come with the two hands. I've got that kind of baseball bat stance, and now and he's going for it. So, Obi-Wan was already showing, yeah, I'm definitely back, baby.
Yeah.
So what were your thoughts there?
Oh, well, my thoughts there. I mean, as that battle started to progress, and as you said, he had to switch. I mean, Vader, Obi-Wan is now coming after him, which is also, I mean, not only is he using the stance that he's known for, which is defensive, but now he is starting to change how he fights more, which is different from what he fought when he fought Anakin, because he has to commit this a different way, and he is pushing him to those limits. And I mean, so much so to the point when Vader stops that and he throws, he slices the rock up, he does this, and then when they go to the pit, I mean, Vader slams the ground to create that pit, because that's the only way he's got at this point to slow Obi-Wan down. And when he does, I mean, what I took from the scene in the pit with Obi-Wan was that he was there and there was that moment of doubt as he was buried, like, can I get out of this? And then he remembered what he was doing it for. It was like remembering Leia, remembering Luke, remembering those things. And this is what I fight for. And this is why I believe in the Force and why I'm who I am. And then it's like, okay, my connection's full now. It's not, this is no longer tentatively I'm using it to protect myself. I'm all the way back, and we are going to have a fight. And to come out of that, like I said, I thought, to Doug's earlier point, that I could have done without the Riva scenes in there. You could have just given me this fight, okay? I mean, because I already know the outcome of the Riva stuff. So, I mean, and I understand the idea to break it up so you can give a little bit of a break so you can get the context of what's going on. But man, I mean, because when you come back from that, I mean, you're like, well, Obi-Wan's buried. But then you come back to that scene, and he comes out of that hole. I mean, he pushes all the dirt off of him, all the rocks, all the everything, and I've got my powers, and I jump out, and he immediately comes up. Well, not immediately. He kind of stealthily comes up on Vader due to the Force, but I don't know how you stealth your lightsaber in that too. But after that, then it's on, and it's like Vader goes at him, and it's like, no, you were always the Padawan, and I was always the master, because he launches him. I mean, nobody's launched Vader like that. In all the memories of everything I've seen, nobody just makes Vader look like he's a rag doll, And at that point, Obi-Wan's like, I mean, you just see that look on his face, because he lifts up the world and starts throwing rocks at Vader. And Vader has no out.
So tell me this, Nick. Usually you see the bad guy using a force push or throwing rocks or whatever, but in the second arc of their battle, it's Obi-Wan that does that first, right? He's kind of over, because I'm watching it now. So he overpowers Vader, and he takes this big pillar and tries to push it on him, right? And that's when Vader says the line, you've gotten stronger, but not good enough, buddy. So what are your thoughts there? Like that struck me. It's usually what you see, like the Emperor will cheat, all the bad guys seem to do that. It's not just going to be a straight up sword battle, but Obi-Wan did that first, right? He started using his force powers first. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's probably very reminiscent because of most Sith are so focused on getting power, right? And more powerful, more, I mean, clever. I think there's probably some cleverness there too, but definitely a lot of power. And I think that's what was really highlighted about Obi-Wan in this battle, is that power has returned, right? And that he is a Jedi Master. And I honestly felt like it seemed like he was more powerful than what we saw in Episode 3 with some of. I mean, I really liked the arms out and the rocks just battering, Vader. I actually thought that was really neat. I think it was a really clever way to incorporate. I mean, there's so much imagery of like lifting rocks in for Jedi, and this was just like, there's something about this that I would have loved for Rey to do, but I'm glad that this was Obi-Wan to capture just lifting rocks and throwing them at Vader, right? I really enjoyed it, and I think that yeah, I mean, there's definitely some, like I said, feeling a little strange about him being more powerful now than he was in Episode 3. But maybe he's got a clearer vision, and he's got, at the time of the Episode 3 battle, right? He's battling against his brother, and now he has more purpose and vision.
That's interesting. Did you all interpret Vader as Obi-Wan being more powerful than Vader? Because I felt like it was Obi-Wan kind of outfoxing Vader again.
I would say more skilled, right? He seemed more skilled in his swordsmanship, right? He can move faster, and which is why Vader had to go to the two hands. So that was my thought on it. Not necessarily more powerful, but more skilled.
He was more finesse, and his strategy when he came out of the hole was more targeted. Like, he started hitting Vader's weak points and going for the computer box. Like, oh my gosh, that's so clever. I've never seen anybody go. He's got all those buttons. Why is
the buttons?
That was
giant target.
Yeah.
The turn off oxygen button might be a good force.
Power button. But I loved that, and I also, the more he like chipped away at Vader and slashed his back, and Vader's like starting to have a hard time breathing, like I immediately start to have pity for Vader again, like this tough, evil person, and yet you see him start to become weak and vulnerable, and it's like, how can you not still feel for this guy? It's Anakin. Anakin's under there, like, and I think it's so funny. We keep saying how the Reva and Luke scenario, we know how it's going to end. Well, we know how this is going to end too, but we care so much about these characters, and the acting is so good, and the directing that, like, it carries so much weight, and like it was very emotional. Like Episode 3, for all of its faults, like I still choke up when Obi-Wan is telling Anakin, like, you're my brother, like what probably the best part of any of the prequels. And this episode and this fight, once we see Vader's mask get chipped open, it has a similar vibe emotionally. Yeah.
What kind of writer writes a character who has such a horrible existence, right? I mean, you're raised as the chosen one. You go to the dark side. You turn on your master. You get beat at every turn. You end up losing at the end. You get redemption in the very end. But man, what an existence! What a horrible story.
George Lucas and Michael Kasdan, I think it was the other.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Matt and Monkey. So, after they have the pillar fight and Darth is saying, you're not strong enough yet. Then he's like, okay, I've got to lean on my power, right? So he strikes the ground, he makes the pit, and he throws Obi-Wan in there. Talk about your thoughts there. And again, I mean, he buries him under all this rubble, but he can still feel the Force. How does he leave again? Like, I just... That's a part that kind of took me. It's like, why wouldn't you use your Force powers and force it down to where it's like, you're done, buddy. I'm going to make sure you're done. Not again.
I think it's back to Vader's kind of overconfidence, and I think from Vader's perspective is, even after the Jedi kind of die, they can still send, right. We've kind of talked about this in the past of like there's still some. So I don't think it's that crazy that Vader would walk away while still sensing Obi-Wan, right? Just especially with powerful Force users. But I think it's Vader's overconfidence, and I think to me that was the turn of the tide, because Vader, I don't think Obi-Wan could crack the ground like that. And that Vader kind of exhausted himself, right? So he actually cracked the ground, made the pit. And, back to thematically, right? We're talking about what's actually happening. Vader's literally trying to bury the past, right? Instead of dealing with his issues, he's just trying to repress, bury it, and be done with it, and thinks that'll solve his problems. And of course it doesn't, right? Trauma has a way of just popping out, when you least expect it. And so I think that's kind of the other. So we talked about what Obi-Wan was having. I think that's what Vader's doing. And then, his overconfidence, and he just thinks he can power through, which is back to the montage, right? Obi-Wan beats him by, outplaying Anakin, right? Whereas Anakin just tries to beat him with brute force. And I think that's what's happening here. So Vader exhausts himself, and then that Obi-Wan, right, bides his time, sees the opening, and then Obi-Wan unleashes, his rock volley, and then force push, and that's when the tide turns, and Obi-Wan outskills them. So just top to bottom, I mean there's so much, but yeah, I think that's my take of what's happening kind of with the pit and then the turn of the tide.
So, Monkey, tell me this. He buries him in the pit, and Anakin says to Obi-Wan, you're defeated now, and he calls him Master, which I thought was surprising, right? It's like my last time I'm gonna call you this, right? That's it. I've finally beaten you. It's over. I thought that was interesting, but he walks away. He thinks he's won. What are your thoughts? I thought Qui-Gon was going to come to Obi-Wan there under the rocks, and he didn't. So what were your thoughts on that, Monkey?
I would tell you, Vader calling Obi-Wan Master that final time was more of a not being able to let go yet, not fully being gone just yet, and that shows more after his mask gets cut open and you see his face and you see the eye change when he finally comes to that realization and he gains the iconic Sith yellow eyes. But Obi-Wan being able to come out of all the rocks, I'd tell you, he just focused all of his force energy and just projected it as like this all around force push. And it shows the growth of Obi-Wan, and even in like his stance, if you look at it, he uses the Clone Wars stance here. But if you go to Rebels, when he is old man Obi-Wan and he's fighting Maul, he starts with his Clone Wars stance, but he actually swaps to Qui-Gon's stance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think both of them in this fight, in this moment, are coming to terms with who they are now and what they must do and burying the past.
I love that. Let me ask you a question, Nick. Rob mentioned that, or I think it was Matt. No, it was Rob. He mentioned how much power Vader had to use to build the pit. That was either Matt or Rob. I can't remember who said it now. You guys have said so many things, and that he was exhausted from that. That used a lot of power. But I would say in the converse to that is Obi-Wan had to use the same amount of power to get the rocks off him, right? So, I don't want to feel like, Vader was at a deficit because he made the pit and he falls in and he throws the rocks on top of him, because Obi-Wan had to put that same energy up. So he gets the rocks off of him. Vader is walking 2 miles back to his ship, which is just kind of bizarre. He doesn't hear the rocks explode out, but he comes up right behind him. Just some things are kind of clunky on that. I think they could have had him hear the rocks, have the saber light up, and turn around, kind of like a Western duel, and then walk back with a little dialogue and then go back to the fight. I think I would have enjoyed that a little bit more. But time and all that good stuff and whatnot.
Yeah.
what did you think about the montage of thoughts since Qui-Gon didn't come? He had all of these images and memories. What did that do for you?
Yeah, my first thought was actually thinking about Harry Potter and how they, conjure a Patronus as they think of their most happiest thoughts. And in this example, he's just thinking of his true purpose, right? Like these moments that he's had with the Skywalker kids, and the purpose that they have for the future, the kids that they are for him, and his mission in order to protect them. And I think that it is like a new fresh air. It's when Vader is walking away, he thinks the battle is done, whereas Obi-Wan is coming back into the second half with new energy, new motivation, and a new drive, and probably a whole lot more adrenaline going in. Whereas Vader thinks thinks the battle is done, is walking away, and it's only in the last second where he senses Obi-Wan approaching, where he turns quickly to block the blade, and now he's off guard. It's now on Obi-Wan's initiation that the second half begins. And I am in going back to your earlier point, Matt. I'm in agreement that I think Vader is still more powerful, right? I think it is Obi-Wan's cleverness and his strategy and his drive that has really defeated Vader in the end. I think earlier I was making the point that just Obi-Wan comparing himself to previous Obi-Wan, meaning in this battle he seemed more powerful than he was in Episode 3, not necessarily more powerful than Vader.
You guys are both, well, everyone's shaking their heads there. Doug, jump in here. So when Vader or when Obi-Wan comes up, and as Nick was saying, he turns around just in the nick of time. See what I did there? And immediately Obi-Wan really starts showing out. I mean, he's swinging right behind the back, like right from the beginning. Like that resolution that you talked about, Nick, was, I've got it now, right? Light beats dark, love beats hate, and it's on. It's a beatdown from this time on. And typically you might not fight that way. You might fight more straight up. He's more of a defensive fighter. But I mean, the behind the back, and he's just going. And Vader actually has to use what he used against Reva, right? Where he has to use the Force to hold off a blade strike because he can't get his blade over fast enough. That's how fast Obi-Wan is moving at that time. So talk about this third arc of this part of the battle. Did you see it kind of how I did, or what did you see there? This is so great.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, Obi-Wan's got this second wind here, and I think Vader's pride and arrogance, and again his rage, like it blinds you, and it blinded Vader. So he wasn't expecting that, and I can definitely see Obi-Wan using some sort of Force cloaking type of thing to muffle his steps and maybe even the blade. So I can totally see him sneaking up on Vader if the determination is there and his mindset is there. Yeah, no, it was a beautiful end to the fight, and Obi-Wan showing mercy again. I think what stood out to me for this last part here is that Vader didn't win this battle. He did not win this battle, and then when he faces Obi-Wan again in Episode 4, they do a little duel, but then Obi-Wan lets him strike him down.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like Vader never really gets a really cool victory over Obi-Wan.
No.
Like that's gotta really suck. Like after all those years, you finally get to fight your nemesis and he lets you kill him. Like you never get to rub it in his face. Like I can imagine Vader just that being really infuriating. And then Obi-Wan disappears in Episode 4. Like when his corpse just yeah. Anyway, so I loved this battle. Yeah, it was great.
Matt, jump in there. So like I said, he's going behind his back, right?
Yeah.
Vader has to use the Force, to stop a blade strike. And then immediately, like Rob was saying, he throws Vader back like 50 yards. It's just on right now. He's just overmatched from that point. What was going through your mind at that time? Were you yelling out? Were you geeking out?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. It's like it's at the point in the movie, right? Rocky's taking like 5 blows, and then Rocky just starts going, right? So you're just rooting for Rocky, rooting for Obi-Wan. I mean, I think, yeah, and like Doug was saying, I definitely agree with what Doug was saying. Is like, this is there's so much happening all at once, and we've talked about all the different pieces, but yeah, to see Obi-Wan go, and then the lunge, right, to actually open up the mask was beautiful after like 5 or 6 strikes. And yeah, at that point, so Obi-Wan's rolling, but then you do start to feel bad, and I think that's the power of the scene is, and then you see Anakin, and then Anakin, he's trouble breathing, and he's coming in and out, and yeah, there is, Obi-Wan really, has this. Obi-Wan has Anakin's number, right? Like, he knows how to defeat his former apprentice, and he, just because he knows him so well, and it just has and this is some of the fundamental difference between Sith and the Jedi. And then ultimately, yeah, Anakin never gets the satisfaction, like Doug says, right? It's all on Obi-Wan's terms, of that Obi-Wan is truly let go, and he's ready to let go his, corporal form. And yeah, and this just, I think, adds kind of in that legacy, and ultimately in what an insult now that Obi-Wan even gives him mercy at the end of this battle, as opposed, right? Like, just from Vader's perspective, right? This is it's just one nail in the heart after another, right? Is that, Obi-Wan didn't actually try to finish. I don't know if this was some debate too of what was Vader actually finished. I don't know if, Vader was clearly wounded and Obi-Wan won the fight, but I know Nick and my other brother Jake were talking. I still think it would have been a battle, right? Because this scene we've talked a lot about. I think Deborah Chow watched Twilight of the Apprentice, because there's just so many parallels between that. But Ahsoka gets the strike on Vader's helmet too, and actually comes eye to eye with Vader, and they have a similar scene, right, where she
it was the opposite side of the helmet, though.
Oh, it was the other side. Thank you. It was the other side, Rob. Yeah. And it was a similar dialogue between what we had now of are you just going to leave again? And Ahsoka's like, not this time, right? I'm not leaving you, right? And then Vader's like, well, then you'll die. And they still battle. So Vader still has some fight in him, even if his mask is free. And I think that was, and that's kind of leads into the part we haven't talked about, is that final dialogue, right? And I think this is the final. Obi-Wan says, I'm sorry, right? I'm so sorry that I failed you in this way. And of course, Anakin, or Vader taunts back, is like, oh, you didn't do this, right? You don't get the satisfaction of thinking you corrupted me. I killed Anakin, which of course is not completely true. Anakin is, trying to convince himself as much as Obi-Wan, but to see Obi-Wan be able to like apologize and then also accept that this is not the moment, because I think that's when Obi-Wan sees, I can't turn Anakin back at this point, right? Vader still might have a piece to play, and I think that's what Anakin or Obi-Wan senses, and of course that fits in the mercy, which we've talked so much about. But that to me was the most kind of heartbreaking part of hearing Obi-Wan full on say, I am sorry, right, for everything that happened, all the ways Anakin was mistreated too, right? There's a lot of the Clone Wars documents too, the ways Anakin was really mistreated, especially by Mace Windu and some of the other, Jedi Council, High Council members, and Obi-Wan, and a lot of times Obi-Wan was sent to try to smooth things over with Anakin, right? To try to make sure that they, even though they weren't necessarily the most forthright and forthcoming, and there's a lot of stuff in there. In the Clone Wars, Obi-Wan fakes his own death, and then Anakin kind of goes on a mini revenge run there, and Obi-Wan didn't tell. So I feel like all of that impact, all of the ways that the Jedi kind of contributed to Anakin, turning to the dark side. I think Obi-Wan gets in one apology, and it's so sad. And that, just like what Doug was saying too earlier, of how in episode 3, you were the chosen one, you were meant to balance the Force, not leave it in ruin, right? Like, I mean, it was just, oh my gosh, yeah, started tearing up.
So Rob, take us into that. One of the most iconic scenes for me is after he throws Vader into the wall, right? You get this pose where Obi-Wan, and you can't see it because there's so many of us on the camera, but he's got his arms outstretched, with the saber in one hand, and the rocks are behind him, and he's getting ready to throw them at him. And it's like I need a character, a cartoonist to draw me like that. You know, with my saber out with a bunch of rocks getting ready to be hurled. It's just an awesome scene.
Yep.
But I mean, he's just really dominated. Talk about that, and then let's go into that little fourth arc of that fight there, and that dialogue after he slashes.
Oh,
Vader's
I mean, it was just incredible. I mean, to see Obi-Wan rise up. I mean, he does that force push. He moves him, like you said, the 50 yards, and he doesn't even give Vader a chance to breathe. I mean, there's no let up. You know what? I've got you on the ropes. I've got you down. I am going to hit you, and I'm going to lift everything I got, and it is just one after another, and you just see Vader. Just, I mean, he's trying to defend it, but there's no defending it. There's just no. I mean, it's just bam, bam, left, right, just there's no out. So then, to see him, and then Obi-Wan, when he lets up on throwing the rocks, he comes at him, and it is run, bound, and as hard as he can with all he has to hit Vader and to break that helmet, And I did skip some of that fight in there because you watch them as they're fighting and they're going on and on and on. It is, Obi-Wan's like, you know what? I can fight with more than just the blade, which he showed you throughout the episode. He had made, or, throughout the series, he had made different references. I mean, Vader comes at him and you can see where Obi-Wan's using all the tricks he knows and everything he has in the Force, because he takes that hand of Vader's and literally grabs his hand and holds it there and flips his lightsaber with the other one and just bashes his plate in, And at this point, he has beat him down. I mean, mercilessly. You hear the rasping breathing. He's moving slowly. And to refer to Monkey's point and Matt, as they're going through this dialogue, and you see his eyes change to the iconic Sith eyes at the end of it. As you're watching him in there, he's talking about the different things about being Anakin and not. There is that conflict. And not only are you seeing it in the eyes, in the color of being Anakin's or going to the Sith color, but you're seeing it reflected in the light of the lightsaber that's on him when he's talking about the various parts.
Mm-hmm.
Because it is the blue lightsaber or the red lightsaber, and it gives a different reflection, and I thought that was so well done. And to watch the whole scene and to hear him, and you hear kind of the mix of James Earl Jones and Hayden Christensen and that digital, and as he's explaining it, that no, you don't get credit. You didn't kill me. You didn't kill Anakin. I did this. I'm the one that made this decision, not you. You're not going to get to claim this. And to see the emotions on Obi-Wan's face as he comes to terms with it, and he's sad, and I mean, and you see it. You see the tears welling up in his eyes, that he feels so bad, but it is what it is, and I think that, again, to go to Revenge of the Sith and you were my brother and all of that and the emotions that are tied up there, and then to see this and Obi-Wan gets that closure, it plays with all your emotions, because I got the chills in the feels, right? And to watch him when they get done and he goes, "Goodbye, Darth," and he turns his back and he walks away, and to him that's the act of mercy. But as you hear the rage in Vader's voice screaming at him, "I will kill you, come back, right? I'm coming for you, Obi-Wan." From Vader's point of view, that rage is because he feels that that's pity, not mercy.
Mm-hmm.
That's pity,
Yeah.
Well, let me say, first off, I hate shows where they let the bad guy live, and if you are the family member or the victim of one of Vader's people, out of thousands of people he kills after that, it's like, you know what, you could have saved a bunch of lives, but that's a whole nother thing. Monkey, I want to ask you this, Anakin says, "I am not your failure, Obi-Wan. You did not kill Anakin. I did." Talk about that, Monkey. That was powerful.
I think it was kind of giving Obi-Wan a way to resolve his inner demons with that, but also Anakin just kind of coming to this conclusion with himself that Darth Vader had killed off Anakin far before the fight on Mustafar. And that Obi-Wan leaving him there was not his first death. It was when he gained a new body, yes, but Anakin had died beforehand when he went down this path and killed the younglings and started to become who we know as Darth Vader.
Monkey, that's really fascinating because I didn't see it that way. I actually saw it the other way. I saw it as Anakin trying to take some kind of victory from it, right? Like, I'm not going to give this to you. You know, you didn't kill Anakin. I did. You know, I still have to take power over it. But the way that you just shared that, I'm more inclined to believe that, right?
Well,
It's like, no, you didn't do it. You know, I did that. You know, there was some regret in there. There was that Anakin, which the mixing of the voices was really powerful, right? It was a
yes.
great image to have the half mask, to have the voice mixing, and it's like you're getting those last glimpses of Anakin until, you know, Luke, so many movies later. So I thought that was really powerful.
Well,
You know, Nick, jump in. Oh, go ahead and finish your thought, Monkey.
I'd also like to tell you on a previous comment that was made about Obi-Wan in New Hope just taking the victory away from Vader and not giving him really any way to gloat. I would like to think that after everything and Anakin becomes a Force ghost, that it's somewhere in Force heaven or whatever. Anakin's giving Obi-Wan just laughing at him because you gave up. And just kind of gloating.
I would love to see that reunion of them in Force Heaven.
Do they have a rematch? Do we get to see something like that? That'd be pretty crazy, right? So Nick, talk about that there. You know, the last kind of dialogue. How did you take that to mean? Because Monkey gave he changed my thought process on that last dialogue.
Yeah, I see both sides. I think probably was most powerful just that. I mean, definitely the dialogue, definitely the I'm sorry's, and the, you know, I think that really got me choked up, and you know, it's, yeah, I don't know. I don't have much more to add. Let me say that.
Doug, you have any thoughts there?
Boy, I feel like we've really dissected this in a well-deserved way, and I've really enjoyed hearing everybody's different takes and just even things I already like felt like I knew, but hearing others re-describe them gives me chills, and it's powerful. So yeah.
Now, you know what's interesting is that all ends at minute 29 or so, and there's like still 21 minutes left. You know,
Wow.
with credits, of course. So, you know, they swing back, they finish off the dialogue with Reva, and then Obi-Wan goes back to give Leia the robot Lola, and you know, just kind of pay that off with her dressed up in her baby Leia outfit, right? Her cosplay, which is awesome to see, and that's a great payoff there. Um, that was tough to see, you know, because they really did, as clunky as it was kind of going forward, by the end of it, you could see the relationship between Obi-Wan and Leia was definitely really special. And I didn't see her as this obnoxious kid anymore, but really almost a really mature, um, almost like a late teen, that was wise beyond her years. So I had a lot of respect for the character, as Matt was saying, the actual character that played Leia, but Leia in that form too. And then giving the Owen allowing Obi-Wan to actually meet Luke.
Yeah.
Talk about that, because I think that was a lot of us thought the episode was going to be Luke and Obi-Wan, not Leia and Obi-Wan. So this is all we got of this part. So talk about that part, guys.
It was great to see Obi-Wan say hello there.
Yes.
He's back. Obi-Wan is back, and he's got his swagger and his charm. Yeah, and I actually, I almost agree with you, Marwan. I was kind of annoyed at times with Leia, but this little goodbye was so sweet, and I loved when Obi-Wan described her parents.
Oh,
and the attributes she got from Anakin and Padme, like that was really sweet and a tearjerker as well. And I felt bad that he was leaving them again. Like, they. I now want to watch 4, 5, or 4 especially to kind of like see how Obi-Wan and Leia interact when they are together. I mean, it's not much actually, right? Or yeah, because they're going to rescue Leia. But yeah, but the Luke scene was nice. I love Owen. I thought Joel Edgerton and then the actress who played Beru, like these two characters I really didn't care about, but they really gave it their A game. And I love the arc of Owen, and letting Obi-Wan say hi and give the toy was, yeah, it's a good feel good ending. Yeah.
Nick, what are your thoughts on that? And, again, whether it's fan service or, kind of giving loyalty to the characters to bring back the actual characters, I think is fantastic in Beru and Owen, is awesome to be able to carry that on. So what were your thoughts about the interaction between Luke and Obi-Wan?
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see him get to say hello. And it was unclear what their relationship really was like before, if they had met before or not. So it was nice to have some sort of, solid info that was their first meeting since the original handoff. And great to see, Owen really like be Luke's father, like take ownership of the father figure for Luke. And I think we see a little bit of that in the, in episode 4, where he does have that kind of father figure, father role, but now, we see how he kind of owns it. And it's nice to see him soften too, right? The episode 1, it was like, don't come near, don't touch, like, I don't want, stay away. Right. And now it's like, well, do you want to meet him? Right. Do we, and also, right, like we see a little bit of softening from Obi-Wan, and how it's not like, I need to train him, like, give me the boy, it's trusting in the Force, and when would be the right time? I don't know. Maybe not now. And for Leia and Obi-Wan, I definitely the most powerful moment in the season for me, even past the Obi-Wan Vader, moments were so great with action and everything, but the most moving, I think, to my soul was these are the qualities, the traits that you're getting from your parents that you've never met before. And all I could scream at the end of that season was, at least stay for dinner. Like, you were there for 5 minutes.
Right. So Matt, talk about how that felt for you, and you talked about the hero's journey, right? When we start with Obi-Wan, he's in the cave, he's just hiding, and now it's like, the future will take care of itself. I don't need to be here anymore. Talk about that.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of so many good bits. So I'll just everything that everything that Doug and Nick said, I for sure echo, and was so touching, and I think they said it really nice. So yeah, I think the hero's journey part was really great. I mean, from the call, and then Obi-Wan, he's kind of, in multiple abysses, you could say, right, where in the pit, and then even when he gets burned, right, so and then is the tank, and then actually has this transformative moment from Tala and from seeing the the rebellion, then actually atones for some of his issues or some of his figuring out some of that trauma, and then now returns, right? So we have a nice kind of cycle of the hero's journey, and I think that all was really summed up great. And then finally at that point is when we see Qui-Gon, and so I'll lead us down one last rabbit hole. Is I loved Liam Neeson. I love the line of I've always been here. You're just now in the place to see, right? Because it just fits right in with he was disconnected, and right when you're disconnected, you can't see beyond your current issues, and so it was, and then we have a little bit more to go, right? And that's when Obi-Wan moves out of the cave, and now he's going to live in his little hut, above ground, right? So he's actually now with the land of the living again. But the thing I will harp on with the Force Ghost is the Force Ghosts have also been a source of debate. So the Force Ghost process, because many of the Jedi in the Clone War, the prequel era, just die without converting to Force Ghosts. And Clone Wars addresses this with Liam Neeson. So we're with Qui-Gon. So Qui-Gon actually starts the training to become a Force Ghost, but doesn't finish it. So in the Clone Wars, Qui-Gon is just a voice. And then that voice appears to Yoda, who goes through the complete training. And then actually that's how Yoda is able to become a Force Ghost. And then now it looks like Liam Neeson or Qui-Gon is going to train Obi-Wan. However, it's not clear how Qui-Gon was able to now be full-on Force Ghost when he never completed the training. So that's the one, I think, canon-breaking moment that I'll parse out. But I'll gladly forgive it because it's Liam Neeson and he's back and it's amazing. And so I think I'll just have to let that one go. But I think there's ripe opportunity. I guess this is maybe how I'll end. There's ripe opportunity for, I think, season 2. I would love to see more Force Ghost Qui-Gon. Like, I would just be fantastic to see Force Ghost Qui-Gon. I think they were originally, this was conceived as a 1-season thing. And so when Obi-Wan says, where to find me, that was, referring to A New Hope. But I think it can really open up the door if Bail has another, urgent mission. I think that really can open up the door to season 2. And what we've seen is the interactions between young Luke and Leia were actually strengths of the show. I would be very open to seeing more of that. The last thing I'll say for season 2, I'll end with this, is I want to see crossover with I want to see more Jedi lore. Like, I want to see maybe Obi-Wan or Andor pop up, right? Or Ahsoka pop up. Cal Kestis is around. So I want to see Obi-Wan I really want to see Obi-Wan and Ahsoka interact in this period. They're both active. I feel like times are really tough. Why would you not try to commiserate, right? Or help each other out? It just, to me, seems like a slam dunk. So that's kind of where I would want to see, and where I think kind of logically set up is Obi-Wan maybe taking on a mentoring role, right, to some of the other Jedi that are really helping out the rebellion, Cal and Ahsoka.
All right, I like it. So as we kind of talk about what we'd like to see for a season 2, if there's going to be a season 2, the one thing that I said to Rob was, and he hadn't finished watching the episode, so it was almost a spoiler.
Why, thank you.
But while we're still in rabbit hole time, I'm like, couldn't they have de-aged Qui-Gon? Like, he died a lot younger, right? I mean, it's like, he's super old. Can you put some makeup on him? Like, I just couldn't understand that,
Number one, here's my question for you on that. Why is it when Anakin died that originally he came back as, in the Vader outfit, but after the prequels, he came back as the Anakin we know from the prequels?
I got nothing for you, man.
Exactly.
I would add to that, how did he learn to become a Force Ghost, building off of Matt's theory? Because who taught it to him?
Yeah, the Vader Force Ghost doesn't make any sense with the canon right now. That'll have to be addressed for sure. The aging is all, because I think when we see Obi-Wan in Rebels, that's the next canonical. He's old man Obi-Wan, and that's like 5 years away at this point. So in 5 years, he has like Tatooine was not kind. So I think the aging is kind of in the suspension of disbelief. Also, Owen and Beru are like 9 years away from A New Hope, and they look like 60 and 70, right? So that's a
Again, the
where they
desert
are
is a
now
harsh
is-
climate, my friend.
It's a harsh climate on
Two
Tatooine.
sons.
Double the aging.
Yeah.
Double the aging power. That's right.
They seem like they need some Umbrella Corporation skin cream there.
They do.
Really go to Raccoon City. All right, so Rob, tell us your thoughts on Qui-Gon and what you hope to see for season 2 if they have one.
I thought all the ending sequence was good, wrapping things up. I thought the stuff with Leia was great. I thought it was great wrap up. It gave good callbacks to A New Hope and stuff like that. That pretty much where to find me. Well, there's a reason she was headed to Tatooine when we start that movie. So, I thought that it was really great that Owen has no love for Obi-Wan. He knows Obi-Wan's been there. He knows he's been watching him. I mean, you remember the beginning of the show. He doesn't even want to let him give him a toy. And he fully blames Obi-Wan for Anakin, for what happened to Anakin and so on and so forth. So for him and for Obi-Wan, for Obi-Wan to move past and become more that warrior monk Zen self, with the whole idea with Luke and everything, and for Owen to move past his dislike to let him just introduce him. Because even later when we get to New Hope, that's that crazy old wizard out in the desert. So there's still no love there, but at least, he can see that there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And then to get to Qui-Gon, I thought it was great. And to Marwan's credit, he shut his mouth before he gave me the spoiler. Because I had been watching the episode and I had paused it because he had called me and he's like, "Oh, did you get to?" No, I'm not done. I got 10 minutes left, man.
My bad.
I thought it was good to see them together and to roll out of that. I thought it was great when that they're there and he meets him at Beggar's Canyon. That is where Obi-Wan is. So again, yet another callback, because where did Anakin race pod racers?
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was all really, really good, wrapping everything up. I think that rolling into second season, look, you can give me 6 episodes of Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon palling around on Tatooine, and I'm probably watching. You could do that. You could give me, Obi-Wan with Reva. You could give me another reason for him to go off planet, off Tatooine, because at this point he doesn't need to always be there, and I would come back for just about any reason, as long as there's a good, credible story, obviously. But yeah, I would watch another season of it in a minute, and it could be any of those things.
All right, Monkey. What were your thoughts on the Qui-Gon Force Ghost, and what do you hope for season 2 if there is one?
I think that was one of my favorite scenes in the whole show. Because I liked Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon, and I think it just wrapped up Obi-Wan's story there, and what led him into being who he was when you meet him in A New Hope. And just being able to train with Qui-Gon out there in Beggar's Canyon, and being able to become this Zen old man Obi-Wan. As for season 2, I like the idea of bringing more characters in And now this is gonna come back to my age and the time in which I've taken in Star Wars content, because I sadly have not read any of the legacy stuff. I read a couple of old Boba Fett books, but I had not read any of the legacy stuff. Most of my media is brought through TV, movies, and video games, and comic books, of course. And so this is, I can remember thinking the coolest thing I ever saw was Starkiller from Force Unleashed. So to maybe have that brought into canon, because I was looking into it because I just replayed them recently. I'm actually playing 2 right now. The story of Force Unleashed actually takes place before, or just like about 10 years before A New Hope. So that gives the timeline between Fallen Order and A New Hope. So that does leave the option to have him in Obi-Wan if we do a season 2 and we're introducing characters, because it would be interesting to see Obi-Wan interact with someone who was a Padawan of Vader in secret, and who had kind of known Vader just that little bit.
All right. Now we're gonna bookend this with the brothers. So, Doug, you're next. What did you think about the Force Ghost, and what do you want to see for season 2 if there is one?
Yeah, loved Liam Neeson as the Force Ghost. It was beautiful. No problem there with me. Season 2, I don't think we can keep having Vader come back again and keep getting defeated, just as Matt's made that point before. So I was thinking, who would be an interesting foe to see? Star Killer, that's a really great idea, Monkey. I like that idea. That'd be a great villain, I think, for Obi-Wan to face. But I don't know if it would work out connect within the canon, but like Darth Maul has like the Shadow Collective, this like criminal syndicate, all these different like criminal groups that he's like overseeing, and I think he's still in control of them at this point in the Star Wars timeline. Although I don't know if he could meet Obi-Wan because they meet at the end of Rebels and they have a duel, and Obi-Wan finally kills Darth Maul. But it'd be cool to see them have another duel, or to see Darth Maul in some capacity in a live action series. I'd love to see Mace Windu. I think he's still alive. He only lost his hand and was thrown out a window, but he's still alive, in my opinion. Quinlan Voss was alluded to this season, so maybe Obi-Wan finally answers the call to help out some of these Jedis who are smuggling Force-sensitive kids. Maybe that's something he gets dragged into. But yeah, or some interesting new characters. But I think we need to get away from Vader, and because it ended on such a perfect note here that they should really tread lightly and not overdo it. But yeah, that's my take.
Yeah,
I love it. Nick, your thoughts on Force Ghost Qui-Gon, and what do you hope for in season 2 if there's one?
Yeah, super glad to see Qui-Gon, although slightly confused, as I thought that he was only a voice. So, you know, I would love to see more exploration of Obi-Wan's journey to becoming the Force Ghost. I would also love to see him more, like, I feel like we got past the kind of trauma aspect, or maybe not got past it, but I think we've dealt a lot with his trauma, and I'd love to see him start to wrestle with the future, right? He seems open to being like, okay, like maybe the Force is not wanting me to train Luke right now, but I'd love to see him, you know, whatever that looks like, wrestle with, okay, well, how do I trust the Force in this? What does it look like to, just be led by that? I think there's something to be read in there with, Qui-Gon saying we have a long road ahead. I think there's got to be something there, and I really hope that they explore that, right? Like, what does it mean to be a Force ghost? What does it mean to? This is like a great opportunity for Obi-Wan to learn, as well as to take us along the journey to learn what does this look like. Yeah, as far as villains, I'm with you, Monkey. Starkiller would be a really interesting character to throw in there, but yeah, I'm kind of open to seeing where this is going, and but I'm just excited. Even Reva, I think they could easily take Reva down this road, or down any road of her either healing or maybe falling back, or all of the above, and kind of just finding her own way. I think could be an interesting story as the two of them maybe seek out something or go on an adventure together.
All right. Well, we knew this episode was going to be a little bit longer, as it was episode 6. This was a fantastic journey. I appreciate all of you coming and checking in every Monday to have this discussion. So, big shout out to Doug and Monkey and Nick and Matt and Rob, and also Father John Garrett in the chat. That's awesome. He said amen earlier when we were talking to the church. So we appreciate all the fans out there listening in. We will return. We don't know when we'll return. Could be for Andor, could be, for something else. I would say probably what we should see is, Obi-Wan with Jar Jar Binks. I think that would be nice.
Oh, Misa killed Jar Jar Binks.
I think that would be fantastic. That's what we need to see. But man, I had a blast, guys. I hope that you had a lot of fun doing this.
Oh yeah.
I know that I did. Ultimately, I would say what I would hope for in season 2 is actually to continue in a new direction. I think we've told the Star Wars story kind of as it is. So it would be nice to introduce some new elements. I'm really looking forward to the Andor series, because that's something new for me. And so things that are new, and I actually don't want to see too many crossovers with other characters. What I really hope is that Disney and Star Wars will really start to crank out more shows and build out the universe more away from the Skywalker legacy, and really kind of introduce more folks. So that would really be the draw for me. And to that end, it really wouldn't matter what it is, So again, I want to thank you guys for tuning in and joining us. For Rob, Matt, Doug, Monkey, Nick, did I say everyone? Father John, and me, of course. I am R1 Cameron. This is The Conduit. This was the Obi-Wan Kenobi review series. So we will see you hopefully in the future. All right. May the Force be with you, everyone.